Hey everybody, and welcome to Heathen Talk episode, whatever the hell number this is. And tonight we are talking about good and evil.
Episode 15.
Season 2.
Season 2.
15. Very important. We've been around for a while. And so we're super excited to be here and talk about that. However, tonight's episode is brought to you by someone special.
That's right. Tonight's episode is brought to you by... I have too many windows open. Tonight's episode is brought to you by the book Heathenry Volume 1. And Heathenry was put together by Avidar Infagra after she did a workshop at a regional heathen gathering, and a young woman came up to her and said that this young woman had been told she couldn't be heathen because heathen was a men's religion and no place for women. So Heathenry Volume 1 is part oral history, part ethnography, but it examines the personal ritual practices of modern heathen women throughout North America and Europe. It is available online at heathenry.com. Really great book. I was interviewed for it. A lot of other people we've had guests were interviewed for it. So check it out, pick it up. It's really just this fascinating study about how different people do heathenry. So once again, that's at heathenry.com, or it is the top of our Yule Marketplace for 2016.
I'd also like to point out that when you say several guests we've had, you mostly mean several guests you've had. Because most of the women who've been guests on the show were guests on your women's episodes.
That's true. But there have been, like I said, several guests that I've had on have been in here, including the author. She's been on with me several times. And she and I have a project in the works coming up that we will announce closer to the end of the year.
Awesome. So, everybody please go check out that book. I didn't read the whole thing, but I did glance through it, and it was really interesting. And I know we've got a copy out there floating around with at least one friend of the show who happens to be married to our producer. They're with family tonight, and so we wish them a great weekend.
I read the whole thing because I kept wanting, I'll be honest, I'm narcissistic. Oh, look, it's me. Oh, look, it's me. But
you're such a millennial, Lauren.
I know, and I'm not, though. I am Gen X by the skin of my teeth. But we have that, and definitely, and I'm going to take a minute to plug the Yule Marketplace, if you don't mind, Josh.
Go for it.
So, every year, for the last 2 years we've been on the air, we have done a Yule Marketplace, and it's our way to, give back to the heathen community here by promoting heathen artisans, heathen businesses, and give you a chance to support them for Yule. Our Yule Marketplace went up earlier than this year than it did last year, but it's at yule.heathentalk.com. Go in there. There are books. We have all kinds of craftsmen in leather, vinyl, knitting, shirts. I mean, just a lot more than we did last year. A real nice plethora of stuff. And man, there are a lot of coupons. A lot of places are giving our listeners exclusively discounts. So go on there, check it out, yule.heathentalk.com, visit these people, and give them your money.
Absolutely. And, this Yule is great for this sort of stuff. And we're always really happy to be part of this ongoing tradition, which I believe actually we kind of stole from the people over at Raven Radio when they were doing their show.
Well, they shouldn't have gone off the air.
I just stole it whether they were on the air or not.
Ouch.
Good ideas get stolen, I'm sorry. So, do we have any events coming up?
No, we don't. No events, but if you do have something coming up, go over to Heathen Talk, click on events, let us know. Because, we don't have, I think the only event coming up is mine next month, but we hadn't decided on the weekend yet, so.
Yeah, we got one coming to probably the first week of December, but we haven't, solidified that yet.
Yeah, it's kind of the same here. I haven't had a chance. I meant to do it today in Arkansas, it finally turned winter. So we had our winter finding today, and I meant to talk about it at Feast, but we got discussing other things that were politics and everything else. So that discussion got forgotten. But it was lovely. We had planned this kind of saying, okay, we've kind of pushed it out as far as we can. People are going to be out of town, and then finals. And it was 80 degrees all week. We woke up this morning at 11 o'clock this morning. It was 47 degrees. So,
yeah, our winter pretty much kicked off this week too.
Yeah, finally.
It was kind of weird.
It's been an obscene November. I mean, like approaching 70 once or twice in November.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I was at work, working outside, and I started sweating, and I was confused, and I had to take a break to process it all.
All right, so this is the part of the show where normally we would go and we would toast someone who has done something important for heathenry. At this point in time, though, none of us can think of anyone this week who needs to be toasted. And that's because y'all haven't given us anyone.
really, it is. We're going to blame all of you.
And seriously, audience, you have one job. Well, 2 jobs. Watch the show. Tell us who we should toast.
Well, 3 jobs. They need to buy the merchandise so that we can stay on the air.
That too.
Okay, 3 jobs.
3 jobs. 4 jobs because we asked them to submit topic ideas. So basically, we're paying you guys way too much to not be doing your tasks. I'm just going to go there. You get paid as much as we do,
and you're not doing your job. So
not.
But seriously, this week we've decided that because there hasn't really been anything big in heathenry over the past week, we are going to say what we're thankful for. And since there's only 3 of us, it's not going to take very long. So, Lauren, what are you thankful for?
I am thankful for, honestly, especially right now, I'm very thankful for I'm going to make it kind of heathen relevant, but I am really, really thankful for I've heard it called the Midwest bubble, but this really great community that has built up in the Midwest, that while I am not Midwest, I am Midwest adjacent. The fact of the matter is, when it comes to heathen communities, we are kind of a part of the Midwest community. And I have greatly loved getting to know these people and spending time with them. And, it's so nice to be a part of people who are trying to do heathenry right. They may fail sometimes, but they're doing it. And they're out and they're active in their communities. And so I am definitely thankful for kind of the Midwest bubble, as we call it, as the Midwest heathens in that community, and just how, I don't know, like, I reflect sometimes just how lucky I am to be here in a place where heathenry, it doesn't seem like it, but heathenry is really happening.
What about you, Thorin? What are you thankful for?
What am I not thankful for? My life is fantastic, and it's been an especially good year for it. I mean, everybody always complains on the internet about how terrible 2016 is, but to be honest with you, it's been pretty good for me. I mean, I've got a new job, best job I've ever had, as well as being the best paying job I've ever had. My marriage is better than yours, by which I mean everybody within earshot.
No, it's not.
We can fight over that.
Yeah, we'll fight later.
But I've got, and I've got a baby on the way, which is something that I've been looking forward to for a significant portion of my life, and finally in a place where I can do it responsibly. And the pregnancy's going well, and, next year I'm going to have a kid. So that's going to be awesome.
So I want to talk about something about that real quick. Just real quick. Next year, you're going to have a kid. And yet, last Saturday, I saw you with hair that looked like you were straight out of a 90s nu metal band.
Oh, complete nu metal reject. It was hilarious.
I hope and pray that you will put pictures of that up above the crib for your kid to remember for the rest of his life. Or her life.
Probably the latter.
But please make that a thing.
Oh,
I really want your child to think that her dad was the lead singer for POD.
Oh God!
You know, that might be one of the many lies that I tell my child that they have to figure out on their own later in life are, in fact, lies. I was just discussing with my wife either earlier today or yesterday, I forget which, that we should just all in very seriousness, because of that internet video that came out about all the various misspellings of the word pregnant on the internet on Yahoo Answers. Specifically, the best one, Pergonanant. Best one in there. And so I told my wife what we should do is just for the child's formative years, just every time we have to say the word pregnant, just very seriously and calmly, just like pronounce it Pergonanant. And just so I can see the reaction.
Why do you want to break your child?
Why else do we have them?
My husband's been doing that with Reese's. My husband's doing that with Reese's our entire relationship. I think he's trying to gaslight me into thinking that Reese's is pronounced Reese's.
It is.
It is not.
It's Reese's Pieces.
It is not. Oh my goodness.
So,
anyways, Josh,
this is where we get to the part where we...
What are you thankful for, Josh?
I was going to say right before I was...
Nope.
No, and you don't get to say you're thankful for seeing me looking like a new metal reject.
Oh, but I am.
I would be so thankful if I'd seen it.
You can be thankful for it, but that's not. You don't get out of this one that easily.
You mean I don't get to use that as my thing?
Exactly.
I'm thankful for a lot, actually. This weekend is going to be a fantastic weekend, and I'm thankful for the reasons for that. I am thankful, even though I do not like my job, I'm thankful I've got one. And in all honesty, the thing I'm most thankful for in this moment is beer.
Hey!
I was waiting on that. Thank you.
Actually, so the thing I'm most thankful for is my girlfriend. She's fantastic.
And beer.
And beer. So, Lauren, which vintage Diet Dr. Pepper are you drinking?
I am drinking. I want everyone to see how orange this is and how beautiful it is.
Is that?
I am drinking Tippy Cow Orange Cream, which is a rum drink that tastes like a creamsicle, like a dreamsicle, and it's pretty fabulous.
Fantastic.
We had a rough week last week, so my husband went and bought some.
Fair enough.
Thorin?
I decided to take the same risk that I take every year about this time, and Deschutes came out with their 2016 Jubilee Ale. And anybody who is familiar with this particular seasonal offering knows that it's really, really hit and miss. When it hits, it's right on target, and when it misses by a mile. So you never know whether you're wasting your money on a six-pack or whether you're getting more than you paid for. This year, it was the latter. It's really good this year. Just the color is beautiful. The deep, dark mahogany. It's got a beautiful head to it. Amazing lacing, even on a not beer clean glass. And the taste is just fantastic. It's almost like it's definitely an ale base. You can definitely taste a little bit of heat to it. It's a little under 7%. Just the spicing was right, a little nutty. It's just a great winter warmer beer. I'm impressed. It's the second year in a row that Jubilee Ale's actually put out a really fantastic, the Shoots has put out a really fantastic Jubilee Ale. How about you, Josh?
I am drinking Delirium Noel, which is a Belgian ale, and it is fantastic. I'll show the bottle here. It's got a nifty little bottle. Pink elephant on the cover. It's fantastic. And I know we have some beer fans in the audience. So just look at the color on that. That is just gorgeous.
They do not screw around with that one. That's always a good winter offering from them. Also, I guess winter really must have fallen for all of us because all of us are drinking winter drinks today.
True. And I saw it, and I had to have it, so. And that's kind of the way I shop for beer. Like, hey, look, I I want that, so I'm going to have it. So we're talking good and evil tonight, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I do want to. We had a post. Someone asked a question on the Heathen Talk Reddit that I want to get to real quick, since it's show business and not topic business. Question was, why did we move to Saturday?
I'll go ahead and take that since it's my fault. I work a job where I work from 10:30 in the morning to 7 in the evening, Monday through Friday. And so getting home in time to do the podcast at even a remotely decent hour for Lauren, not really possible. So in order to make the show a thing, it was either push it back and lose Lauren, or lose me and keep it on Wednesday night. So we moved it to Saturday as a compromise. And Skullgrim is absolutely right in his thread that live viewership has been down. The IRC has been dead, and part of that is we're not advertising quite as heavily as we were. It's been a rough year for us. We're down a producer because we're all dealing with life stuff, and so we're not as dedicated as we were the previous year to making sure everybody knew when we were going live and what was going on. We will correct that. It's just going to take us some time to get everything sorted out.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest, a lot of my time has been more focused on getting episodes out in a timely manner rather than a lot of the other stuff. But we have a new producer who is solely a technical producer. She will be handling editing of all the shows, which is phenomenal. That takes a lot of work off me, and that's how I was able to get the old marketplace up, and we're able to do more. So we said staffing changes and that stuff. So, but we're getting there, and I thank everybody for your patience. If you can join us on Saturday night, we'd love to have you. If you're listening to us on the delay, we are working very hard because we're on Saturday night to get it out within that we there is that week kind of lull there because we have to get things done, but we do appreciate.
I'll just throw it out there. If y'all know a job that'll let me work a full-time job and be here Wednesday nights at 7,
yeah,
I have no problem moving it back.
Mm-mm.
So if you happen to be in the Seattle area and you would like to hire a podcaster full-time and pay me a living wage, I'm more than willing to switch my schedule around for you.
No kidding.
Now, see, personally, I thought we moved to Saturday because we can, because we're primetime bitches and we do what we want.
No, usually Saturday shows are the ones that the network sends to die. So the upside is though, I really appreciate all y'all who are still listening to us on iTunes. Our downloads have gone up. So the live audience has suffered, but those of you who are listening to us on the tape delay, really appreciate it. Everybody who's still listening and supporting us, as we've had a rough couple of months with personal stuff.
I know this year has been good for you, Thorin, but seriously, this one has been a doozy for me.
Mine has been, the first half of my year was good, and then David Bowie died, and it felt like it all went to shit.
It was the glue holding the fabric of the cosmos together. Exactly.
Because, I got a new... I'm kind of where Thorin is. I've got a great job, most money I've ever made in my life, but yeah, the whole David Bowie thing kind of...
Okay, so here's the first one of the show. Fuck both of you.
And I'm not pregnant, though, just to let you know. My year's not been as good as Thorin's.
No, I mean, it's entirely possible that the only way for the world to be good is for me and mine to suffer. And I'm just going to tell you now, I don't like anybody else well enough to put up with that bullshit anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and have a good time. And
I'm just saying, push some of that luck my way. That's all I'm saying.
And you
know what? This is not a terrible segue into our topic.
No, that's what I was going to say. This is a great segue into our topic.
Completely intentional.
Yeah.
As with everything on Heathen Talk, that train ride was intentional to get us to where we are now.
Absolutely. It was just a scenic route.
Yeah. And tonight we're talking about good and evil. And I'm the one who brought this topic up, so if it completely falls on its face, you guys can blame me. Just because I have seen on the heathen sphere, the heathen web, whatever you want to call it, a lot of discussion lately about good and evil and what does it mean. And, I think sometimes good and evil is one of the hardest parts of heathenry for a lot of people to grasp. I'm just going to apologize to all your livers. There's going to be a lot of worldview talk tonight, so I'm sorry.
I better grab another bottle.
If we really want to mess with them, well, we could always say, we had a guest and they couldn't show up. There's one you haven't heard in a while.
Yeah. And they were from Cascadia.
Oh, snap.
Wow. Well done.
As a, it was one of the hardest ones for me. And I think that's why I'm going to put this out here. The confusion about good and evil is what gave us the 9 noble virtues.
I think that part of the problem, I think part of the problem, one of the reasons that it's so confusing is because it's so simple.
Kind of, but I kind of want to dive into a little more on it because I kind of want to talk about the differences between a lot of what we're familiar with in the overculture. Because really, there's philosophical meat in the subject as well. I kind of want to get to, so I have to deal with it. So we're going to start out with, we're going to talk about good and evil, and kind of touch on a lot of different points. But, I was raised, the way I was raised and the way a lot of people were raised, at least in North America. Now, different experience in Europe, I have heard from various people, but in North America, especially in the South, good and evil it was a dichotomy. It was black and white. There was no gray. Something was good or something was evil. You had, in Christianity, you had God and the devil. God was good, the devil was bad. I mean, that's pretty much the example I can give that I think the majority of people will at least have enough familiarity with to be able to say, okay, I know where you're going with that.
Well, and to be frank, the ideas of good and evil as they permeate the modern overculture, it is a drinking word, but I didn't say it just for that. The ideas that do permeate that are heavily colored by the fact that we've lived in a Christian world for 1,000 years, and that makes everything black and white because their theology has it in black and white.
Right.
And it has colored Western philosophy, well, since Rome became Christian.
And I think that you also have a thing where, and I'll be honest here, I noticed this very much in this last political cycle. And I'm not, I saw it everywhere on all ends. It wasn't just one candidate or the other. You saw tons of, well, my guy is good and your guy is evil, or I use a lot of. I was using the turd sandwich and giant douche, and then South Park started using it, and I'm like, because I was trying to do it to be nonpartisan, but the point of it being that you see that a lot, even among heathens. A lot of heathens I'm friends with on Facebook will tell me all about how candidate X is evil and candidate Y is not. And, no matter who you supported in whatever election, and I'm not talking about nationals, I'm talking about local, city. I've heard this kind of talk over school board elections.
That's impressive.
Hey, school board elections affect football teams, and football is serious business. Anyway, so... But that's that's kind of the thing. It's, or specific things are good or evil. Things like, and not that we're going to debate this, but things like, abortion, homosexuality, whatever, tend to be by our society put into, people tend to see it very black and white. There are very few people who have an ambiguous thought on abortion. There's very few people who have an ambiguous point of view on dry counties.
The fact that dry counties are still a thing in parts of this country confuses the hell out of me. But I do want to point out that when we're talking about when you bring politics into it, right?
Yeah.
And you have a person saying candidate A is evil or candidate B is evil, regardless of how you feel about it, they're technically correct.
Right.
Because if voting for that person hurts their people, then absolutely that is an evil action. However,
I'm talking about it from
everyone.
I'm talking about it specifically from a more Judeo-Christian idea, because I was trying to build my dichotomy thing so then we could do a comparison to the heathen concept.
Yeah, you see, I'm not good at letting things build. I just jump in.
Yeah, no. So,
how's your girlfriend feel about that?
I'm glad she couldn't hear that one.
I'm not.
Hi, Violet. I hope you're listening to this later.
She's probably not.
So, with that being said, I kind of want to do a comparative, and I think all three of us kind of share a very similar view on good and evil and what they mean in a heathen context. So, anyone else want to talk other than me? Please.
Well, I'm still trying to figure out where we're going with this, if I'm being perfectly honest, because
I'm trying to do a comparison between the more that.
Well, so here, let's do this. I got it for you. You ready?
Let's just talk about
if we're going to do a comparison between heathenry and we'll just straight up do Christianity. In Christianity, evil would be anything that that goes against the will of God, right? If you were going deliberately against the will of God, you are committing an evil act, regardless of what it is. And heathenry, to most heathens, an evil act is one which either through inaction or direct action causes harm to your people. It had nothing to do with causing harm to another person's people, but specifically your people.
And it doesn't have to be you causing harm. It can be an outside person's actions as well. For instance, if someone punched one of your people, then that would be an evil action, even though they aren't part of your people. I wanted to clarify that.
But it may not be an evil action for them. It would be evil to you, but if punching your brother somehow saved their sister's life, then it was a good action for them.
Right.
So, Thorin, you were going to say something.
Well, I'm trying to find it now. I seem to remember in We Are Deeds, Eric Wodening, and this came back because of what you were saying, Josh, describing ill action, or not ill action, but inaction itself as evil.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But being that, inaction is in its own fashion an action, and it's stagnation, no matter how you put it.
Right. Not choosing is a choice.
Exactly.
Well, not choosing is a choice, and failing to act on the behalf of your people in some fashion
is a choice, and is an action. And I think that's the part that when we talk about good and evil, when it comes to heathenry, there is a lot more nuance to it than most people are prepared to deal with, and not just most people, generalization. People who are new to heathenry, they have a very black and white view of good and evil, right? The giants are evil. Well, not necessarily. There's all this nuance, and you have to take into consideration that even when Eric is saying inaction is evil, it's only evil when it causes harm to your people. Inaction in and of itself, just like action in and of itself, is not evil. It is the consequence of said action that causes something to be evil.
And I think that's where I'm trying to bring this comparison. Heathenry is what you would call a relative system, whereas Christianity is an absolute system. just for the comparison there. That's where I was trying to go with this, was that we are, it's very relative to, something that's an evil action today may not be an evil action tomorrow, because we are not in a static world. Things change.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm struggling to think of a good example of that, but I mean, the fact of the matter is, the world changes, we change, okay, here we go. Got one finally. Your ally today may be your enemy tomorrow, and your enemy tomorrow may be your ally, or your enemy today may be your ally tomorrow, depending on what happens. So, it's really...
Well, so we could look at it this way. For the most part, 16 years ago, Russia and America were fairly buddy-buddy. 30 years before that, Russia and America hated each other. Today, half of America hates Russia. The other half doesn't know what to think.
And, and then you look back where... we were allies with Russia in World War II.
We still hated them, though.
Yeah, but they were our enemy, but there was a greater enemy that needed to be fought.
Thorin, you're awfully quiet tonight.
That's because I'm looking at books.
Stop looking at books and just wing it. That's what people came here for. They don't come here to hear you wax poetically about good and evil. They come here to hear you talk.
All right, I'll put the book down.
Thank you.
But continue, and I'll jump in when it's least convenient.
Awesome. I love it when you do that. It makes conversation interesting.
I've done a lot of reading on philosophy. It's something I enjoy reading about. And so I think that trying to make that jump between a very... Because, as a... raised, when I was someone who was raised, especially someone who was raised conservative Christian, the Bible, there is a holy book in which they can point and say, there's the 10 Commandments, there's the commandments of Jesus, there's Paul's letters. I mean, there's these places where I can pull out a book and point my finger to where it says yes or no on something. And it's just not like that with the heathenry. I mean, we have no holy book. We have no commandments. And that can be sometimes to our detriment when we're trying to communicate who we are to those outside of heathenry, especially. And I would say this, though. I think that one of the differences, we've talked about, I've written my Dear Asatru letter. I think that need for a hard, this is bad, this is good, is one of the things that separates Asatru from heathenry.
I think that's a difficult claim to make, because I know a lot of people who would claim to be in that Asatru camp who have a firm understanding of the fact that good and evil can be dynamic, as it was put in the IRC.
Well, let me rephrase that. That's how you separate New Age from...
That I will buy 100%.
To me, I kind of lump all the New Age people as Asatru, so... But yeah, definitely how you can... because there's even within Wicca, there's some pretty strict, there's do's and don'ts. And there's not do's and don'ts in heathenry, and that's, other than, don't hurt the tribe.
Well, we're getting down to, a concept of tribe, concept of Thu, Inigard versus Utengard. All topics that, we've covered before. And
so we're putting them all together.
Right, and I was just going to point out, I feel this is one of those topics where it might behoove us to tell people out there, if this is your first time listening to Heathen Talk, you should look at some of our backlog, because I think we're not going to try not to cover too many... I
don't want to rehash things we've hashed a bunch of times.
But essentially, good and evil comes down to first understanding your inner yard and your outer yard.
Right.
If you don't understand your inner yard and your outer yard, you cannot, literally cannot have an internalized definition of good and evil.
So go listen to last week's episode.
Yes, go listen to last week's episode, because we talked a lot about that when we were covering Circles of Obligation.
And then go and listen to the episode on Frith, because without an understanding of Frith, you can't really understand good and evil either. So
I think that's
standing on the shoulders of giants here.
I think that is kind of why it's such a hard transition, because you have to have all this other knowledge before you can really figure out what's good and evil, whereas other belief systems just give you a list.
Well, it's not even necessarily that they give you a list. The issue is, and I think this is actually a great time to skip the normal process and go ahead and answer a question from the IRC. Skullgrim, who has been on the show, and I'm glad he's not on the show tonight because I couldn't compete with that. But he asks, are heathen ethics purely utilitarian? Are the 9 noble virtues the heathen equivalent of virtue ethics? I'm going to go ahead and say that heathen ethics may not be purely utilitarian, but they are utilitarian in nature. And I say may not be because I'm not a philosopher, and I only have a rudimentary understanding of virtue ethics. So
I have a little more than rudimentary understanding of virtue ethics, but I will say that the 9 noble virtues are very, to a deal, are very in line with the idea of kind of virtue ethics that were put into a place by, man, I wish I had my notes in front of me, by Aristotle. Sorry.
Can you give us in the audience a quick, like a really basic rundown of what
real quick, I actually have the wiki pulled up thanks to Skullgrim. Virtue ethics, and this is again from the wiki, is a term that refers to normative ethical theories which emphasize virtues of mind and character. Virtue ethicists discuss the nature and definition of virtues and other related problems. For example, how are virtues acquired? How are they applied in various real-life contexts? Are virtues rooted in a universal human nature or in a plurality of cultures? So essentially, I would say that the 9 noble virtues would be virtue ethics. It's right there on the title. Because they are listing things that are, as they claim, well, they're virtues. Right?
Yeah.
The virtue of industriousness.
They also fall very much into the whole universal cultural or universal human nature. However that was put in the wiki, they definitely fall into that.
Right. I mean, everybody values an industrious person.
Exactly. It's a whole lot of stating the obvious.
I think that it is definitely virtue ethics. I would argue, however, that I don't necessarily know if it's heathen virtue ethics. I would say that the 9 noble virtues, like you said, are pretty universal. So I don't know that I would necessarily, knowing what I know and what I've studied, I wouldn't say that the 9 noble virtues are heathenry's virtue ethics as much as I would say as they are a form of virtue ethics that are espoused by some people who claim to be heathen or also true.
I do have this, which I think is kind of funny. So we have the 9 noble virtues, right?
Right.
The moral virtues of Aristotle: courage, temperance.
I was right.
Magnificence.
I was right. Yes. Sorry.
Proper ambition, patience, truthfulness. Like it's almost
so that's where they got
the exact same list, and I hadn't noticed.
Isn't there one in there like wittiness or something?
Wittiness is the 9th virtue.
Because I would assume like wittiness is like totally, like if you want to look at the sagas, you want to look at this, that, and the other, and pull out what people in cherished and what people really liked at that time, wittiness would definitely be one of them.
You know, so I think I've got a new game to play.
Okay.
Next time I run into an NNV banging supremacist, I'm going to ask him how it feels knowing that his virtues are written by a Greek.
Oh, I like that.
I just have to go and memorize the whole Aristotle thing. So that might be too much work, but we'll see.
You have a phone, you can whip it out.
Yeah, but that just reduces the whole effectiveness of just hitting them with it.
Yeah.
A little bit. But to cut to the chase here.
Yeah.
When we're talking about good and evil when it comes to heathenry, that is separate than virtues. And it was brought up in the subreddit, or not in the subreddit, goddammit, IRC. You know, are their virtues, are they not heathen? Like, well, it's not that they're not heathen, they're human. Like, people value industrious people. People value brave people. And it doesn't matter whether you are a heathen, a Buddhist, a Taoist, right. Whatever.
Sure. My response is sure they're heathen, but so is breathing.
A raw foodist, nudist Buddhist. Sorry, I interviewed one of those one time when I worked in radio.
Raw foodist, nudist
Buddhist named Avocado.
So did they?
God bless California.
Yeah.
Nope, Portland.
You know, it's damn near the same thing.
Hey.
I know. I knew that was going to get some reaction from you, but come on, dude.
So
the only
difference
is the weather.
So the thing I will say though to that, are they not? They're universal. They're not exclusively heathen, and heathenry goes kind of. They're nice and they're great, but they're not something that is defining to heathenry. I mean, love. You could say, there's a lot of things that heathenry has in common with living as a society, because most cultures have kind of come to a lot of the same conclusions when it comes to being a society, because you have to have certain laws. Not what those laws are might be different, but you have to have laws. Laws are not a heathen thing. Laws are not they're just something that most societies have developed.
So hold up one second here. I'm going to interrupt and see if I can explain this. This is for the benefit of someone in the IRC. If you were listening to the download, you should listen to us live so you could follow this as it was going. We're not kicking back against the thought of virtues. The virtues are a good thing. It is good to have these ideas of how one should think and perceive the world. What we're kicking back against is that they are definitions of good or evil, that they are necessarily heathen. They are universal to humanity. When we're discussing heathen virtue or heathen ethics, we're discussing something specifically heathen, not something that applies to the entire population of the world.
I think it's go ahead, Thorin.
I would also say that Cato's talking about how they hear a lot of kickback on them as though they're bad, and it's not we're not saying that the concepts they are meant to encompass are bad. We're saying that trying to codify them into a simple list and then apply them to as a heathen virtue is bad, because if nothing else, they are vague. They are self-serving. And by self-serving, I mean that whenever somebody talks about them, they can make them mean whatever the hell they want them to mean. And because simple human nature, when it comes to making codified lists like that, is the natural outcome is that people try to start lawyering around them. That is just how it happens. Look at anybody you've ever met that tries to follow the Ten Commandments. They will find their ways around the Ten Commandments, the things that are technically legal.
Just in that example, thou shalt not kill.
Unless, of course, God
if you want to get into the actual definition, thou shalt not murder.
Right.
However, we excuse police officers, soldiers, self-defense, etc., 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 and
And we use a lot of words to dance around them.
Right, because it's a way to lawyer out of it when you break things down into these simple concepts like that. It's talking points, right? I mean, we just got through an election here in the United States. We're very familiar with talking points on all sides of everything. Talking points are easy to lawyer your way out of. That's why they exist.
Well, I mean, okay, so I grew up, once again, I've talked a lot about I grew up in one of those sects that was really big about pushing no sex before marriage at all. And
I used to wear a little gold ring.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm sorry. All I can think about right now is Garfunkel and Oates.
Oh my God.
That was exactly where I was going.
Let's not share that video.
No.
I'm going to find it. I'm going to link it in the IRC. And for those of you that are listening that weren't listening live, it's your loss.
But we could.
I apologize to the IRC.
Let me tell you guys that there are just way too many. I can tell you from growing up in that environment, there were a lot of technical virgins that I was friends with.
I went to a Christian university. I knew tons of technical virgins. I think even I was only technically a virgin. But
I was technically a virgin until I was 19. So, but anyway, another thing I wanted to throw out there for you, for those of you who are talking about it, the 9 noble virtues are these virtues, these ideas don't define what it means to be heathen in the way that the definition of good and evil in heathenry very much define what it means to be heathen and what your heathenry is. Because, to me, you have these 9 noble virtues. Okay, that's great. There's lots of people who aren't heathens who like these too. That doesn't make you different, unique, special. It doesn't separate you from other people when it comes to your theological beliefs.
Right. So to kind of go from this, there are a few religions out there that have these sort of codified laws, like the 10 Commandments, or like the attempt that was made with the 9 noble virtues. And at the end of the day, they all kind of have this universal idea of trying to make society work. So they're not necessarily a bad thing, because when it comes down to it, part of what is good and what evil is how it benefits or fails to benefit your community and society.
Pretty much. I mean, okay, so here's an example that I think is very relevant, that is pretty, I think this is something most heathens can at least identify with to some degree. I am an open public heathen, because me being an open public heathen does not harm my tribe. It doesn't, it's not bringing, I'm not threatened I'm going to lose my job or my home or my kid because I'm an open heathen. There are people who are in circumstances or live in places that they are not openly heathen because of that exact reason. And for me, because of the negativity around heathenry, it's the good for me and for my tribe, and what we have discussed is being heathen. The good is being out there and being public to counter some pretty negative, gross crap. But to people who live in, small towns in the middle of nowhere, or who just live in a situation where that's not possible, the idea of coming out would hurt their family. It would be evil.
Sure.
Well, I mean, we've had that conversation, not so much on the show, but plenty of times in public. I mean, if you go on the subreddit and you just read through my comments, you go far enough back and you will see me telling people that coming out as a heathen may not be a good thing for them to do.
Yeah.
And it is precisely because it may not be good for the family. It may not be good for your people.
coming, if you're, I as much as I'm publicly heathen, I don't, telling my parents I'm heathen is not something I've done, because I think it would damage our relationship too much. If they find out, it's a little different, because my that's just how we work. But, having that discussion with my family is bad. I have friends who have children who are not openly heathen, even in front of their children, because as far as like ritual and that, not because they are worried their kids will go to school, their kids will say something, because kids are kids, and then there will be problems.
Right.
That one's rough.
I'm very fortunate that I kind of do live in a bubble and no one I know is in that circumstance, but there are people in that circumstance.
Yeah.
Well, I know some people in that circumstance. I also know that there's a particular, and this will go back to the cultural baggage episode even, Americans have a tendency to believe that we should wear everything that we are on our sleeves. And in reality, sometimes that's just not the right way to do it.
Yeah.
It's not that you shouldn't be proud of who you are and what you are, but you have to actually consider who you're talking to and what the consequence of that will be.
Now, I want to point out here, just to bring us back to another topic that I know we've discussed in the past, so it's been quite a while, is what we're really talking about here is the consequences of transgression.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt it was important to bring up, because we're kind of verging into a territory where we're trying to tell people that there are times when, it's good to hide your religion from your community. It's good to hide your religion from your own children. And especially when you get into that latter one, that's an extremely difficult proposition to sell.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of times that the people I know of, and that happens, it's due to like custody situations. And
right. And I'm not saying that that's never a valid thing at all. I'm not trying to imply that. I'm just talking about when you actually put it into those words, that's when it suddenly goes. And it's, again, one of those places that words makes things a little bit too black and white, is when you say it outright like that, that seems to be a very bad thing. And so what you're really looking at is the culture you're surrounded by, what we also commonly refer to as the overculture, versus your own culture. And you're also talking about the fact that transgression is defined by many things. Transgression is not just defined by your tribe, not just defined by your people, but defined by the culture you live in.
And that's a rough one.
Right, and transgression does have consequences. Often in our society, they're legal ones, but often enough, they're just merely cultural ones. A great example of this, and I'm trying to lead into the idea that sometimes transgression is good, was, for example, the case of homosexuality. Coming out as gay 50 years ago was a massive transgression.
Mm-hmm.
Coming out as gay today is much less so, depending on where you live. And even in the worst places for it, it's still not as bad as it was, half a century ago.
Well, and so it's very important here to point out that when we're talking about coming out as heathen or coming out as gay, and we're talking about the fact that it's a transgression, like Thorin was saying, it's not that all transgression is necessarily bad, is that transgression carries consequence. That consequence can be bad.
In fact, the consequence usually is bad.
Right. Now, there have been a lot of people who have fought really, really hard to make it to where it is okay to come out as gay, to make it to where it is okay to not be Christian. I mean, we would be remiss if we didn't mention the other minority religions and even the atheists who have made it possible for us to say, I'm a heathen, and that's okay.
Well, I mean, as we discussed in the past, even today, being a heathen is a transgressive action.
It is.
But we're not going to try to argue that being a heathen is evil.
No, but it's the difference between, it's being public or being not public. I chose to become public because I could afford, in my situation, I am in a place where it may be transgressive to the greater, culture in Arkansas. But in my little bubble, my friends, my inner yard, with the exception of my parents, who, while we may disagree on things, I also know my parents are going to love and support me, even if we disagree. I have safety in that inner yard with close friends. And to be able to say, I'm heathen and I'm publicly heathen, and it doesn't hurt. There hasn't been a negative consequence. That being said, in as much as my group is planning on having like a real bloat with animals, we're probably not going to do it at my house because I live in a neighborhood in a city, and I don't want to. My neighbors are pretty tolerant, but they're only tolerant to a point. So we're going to go out in the country and do it, like sane people, because I know that there's a line.
You're going to go sacrifice an animal like civilized people?
Pretty much.
Right.
Well, but the thing is, if we go out into the country where one of my kinder brothers lives, and you kill an animal, a chicken or whatever, or a pig or whatever out in the country, nobody blinks an eye because people keep animals. So while the reasoning we're doing it may be transgressive, actually doing it isn't it transgressive. Now, bloat in and of itself is important, and it is a good thing, but you also have to choose your battles.
Well, if people sacrifice goats more, this would be a much better world.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, like I said before, there comes a point where if the problems get big enough, it's time to start bogging folk again.
Yeah, that might not be it.
Says the sacral king of Cascadia.
Yeah.
Hey, if stuff gets bad enough, I would gladly go to a bog for my people. Luckily, there's not a lot of bogs up here.
We have some alpine bogs.
Shut up. Nobody needs to know that.
Does swamps count?
We don't really have true swamps up here.
Because we have.
She's not there.
Sometimes I forget Arkansas is a place.
Hey, Josh. For those of you at home, it's 10 o'clock. I can officially do this. It's 10 o'clock. I can officially do this. For those of you who don't know what that means, hey, Josh, go fuck yourself. Because, Arkansas is a wonderful place in scenery and lots of other things. Sometimes our political decisions are not so great, but,
I just want to point out that I kid. I've got family in Arkansas, Alabama, Oklahoma. I've got family all through the area. But, I mean, let's just be honest. Cascadia is just a far superior nation.
It really is.
So anyway, the idea is, and even regionally, it would be much easier for you or Thorin to be openly heathen in Seattle than it would if I lived in Searcy, Arkansas. Which if you don't know anything about Searcy, Arkansas, just go read anything written by Beth Ditto, because she grew up there and we're the same age.
Wasn't Jack Chick from Arkansas?
I don't know. He's Midwestern. He was not. I don't know.
I thought it was like Arkansas
Is Arkansas only the Midwest when you're not talking about bad things like Jack Chick?
No, I mean, he was we're Midwestern adjacent. He was legitimately
Arkansas is the California to the Midwest.
I hate to tell you guys this, but Jack Chick.
If you tell me he was from Seattle, I'm going to throw something at someone.
No, actually, I think he was from Western Washington, I believe. Give it a whole.
No.
Vernon.
No. Jack Chick was born in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles, California, and grew up and lived in Pasadena.
Okay, well, never mind. Who was it? I don't remember.
Johnny Cash is from Arkansas.
I was just there. There's somebody horrible that I just recently learned.
Tony Alamo. Tony Alamo is from Arkansas, but practically Oklahoma. So
Also, Skullgrim, yes, it's a nation. Get over it.
It really is. Also, I did just remember who I was thinking about. A person that used to be horrible and now is marginally less horrible. Glenn Beck is from Mount Vernon.
Yeah, I was going to say Glenn Beck sounded sane this week. It scared me. Anyway.
The word I've been hearing for him lately has been woke.
He sounded saner than Anderson Cooper, and that really scared me. I do love me, like, Anderson Cooper is good to look at.
Anyways, now that we've alienated all of our right-wing fans, let's move on.
Right-wing, left-wing, Glenn Beck just, like, sounded
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Did you just call Anderson Cooper a looker? Have we figured out Lauren's type?
He is a looker. He is a looker. I mean, how can he not be his mother's Gloria Vanderbilt?
I'll be honest. That man's a good-looking man.
He is a good-looking man.
That hair, he's a silver fox.
I know. No, if I have a type, it's Natalie Dormer. So, but anyway.
So we got our right-wing fans back by extolling on the virtues of Anderson Cooper's appearance.
Anderson Cooper's not right-wing, though.
I don't know who half of these people are. I kind of exhausted myself.
The openly gay anchor on CNN.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I exhausted myself.
Violet says he's Legolas.
He is. He really is. Okay, so So anyway, back to this whole idea. It is. It's so, and I think, like most of heathenry, though, what you consider good, what you consider evil, is going to be regional, just based on the fact. It's not even going to be regional. It's going to be It is going to be straight down to your group.
Right, because I can definitely think of a local tribe or two or three that I would consider many of their actions to be definitely verging on, if not full-blown evil.
Well, and I can think of people who I can think of someone I am a friend with who his people have committed actions I would consider evil because they directly impacted people I consider mine. That it's not, like, it's definitely not a judgment call on that person, and because I'm heathen, I can understand where their actions would be good for their people, but that doesn't change the fact that they negatively impacted people I consider mine.
Well, I mean, I'll a little story time here. There is a group I'm familiar with, and they had a probationary member, and that member got into a drunken, loud argument with a member of another tribe at a gathering. And that to them was evil. And they booted him to the curb because it violated the relationships that they had built with this other tribe. Now, if getting into an argument while drunk was always evil, I've done a lot of really bad shit on this show. So,
have you been drunk on air?
Do you not remember the night that I got drunk and Toby and I went at it for like 30 minutes?
No.
Average farm remembers.
I need to find that episode. I drink and I've never been drunk on the show.
I don't drink except on the show. So
I've been drunk on this show.
I also have the problem.
Apparently I need to get drunk on the show.
I also have the problem of I'm a total lightweight because I'm on Lyrica. So 2 drinks and I'm like, I mean, right now I'm pretty buzzed right now, I'm not gonna lie. But if arguing in general among heathens was evil, we'd all be some pretty evil motherfuckers because we all, oh God, Facebook. And before that, mailing list, and before that, Usenet.
Have you been to the subreddit? All we do is argue with each other.
I know. But that's the point. I mean, the point is that at least when we argue on the subreddit, it's usually like there's some modicum of like civility sometimes. On Facebook, it gets ugly.
I just want to say for the record that it was just said on YouTube that Reddit is more civil than Facebook.
No. The True subreddit is more civil than parts of Facebook. I'm specific subreddit.
My broad generalization.
Yeah, it's not. Because like nobody on the True subreddit would try to argue a point by telling somebody their kid is fat.
I think that's mostly because 3 of the 4 mods on the Osseter Facebook are just cranky old heathens who don't have time for your shit. And the 4th one will get there soon. But she's new, so.
But
she hasn't had the hope beaten out of her yet.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, we're just to kind of give you guys that thought there. That's kind of where it's going to be different. Now, I kind of want to. There's another point on this I want to touch on before we go tonight. Also, if you have questions, you can ask us in YouTube live chat. You can ask us on Facebook or ask us on IRC, and we will talk about whatever your question is.
And this is a subject that's really good for questions because, I was, at least in my opinion earlier, from towards the beginning of the show, I think a huge portion of why this subject is so difficult to deal with is because it is, at its essence, ridiculously simple, but any ridiculously simple topic gets really complex when you apply it to the real world.
It's really simple, but it's not easy. And I'd just like to point out that if you wanted an example of how difficult this is to talk about, we just spent the last 20 minutes not talking about it.
But okay, so I want to. This is something that the second half of this that I want to talk about, because I think this right here is probably the real useful part of the topic. And that is, how have you, in your own personal evolution, how did you kind of reconcile and kind of come to this worldview, this idea of what good and evil are, which, for those of you joining us late, are the short version: that which is good for the tribe is good, that which is bad for the tribe is evil, is kind of is the thesis we're going with today. That is actually pretty much what we all buy into as far as good and evil. How did you make that mental leap from a more dogmatic idea to this? What were there any kind of influences, books, reading, whatever?
So I'm gonna jump in here because I'm the odd man out when it comes to this group. I'm young. I'm only 28. And for me, I grew up with friends who...
Lord, give one for me.
I grew up in the I know, but bear with me. I grew up with friends who would have been considered technically evil by the church I was in. And yet I knew these people. I knew them personally, and I loved them. I love them still to this day. One of my best friends in all the world came up to Cascadia and had a great time and was around people she'd never met before. And yet, when I was growing up, she would have been considered evil. So for me, there wasn't this grand shift. It was a stark contrast from what I was being taught to what the real world was when I was young. And I've always been a fan of Robert Heinlein and some fantastic sci-fi authors who tackle these subjects. So from the time I was a little kid, I knew there was a gray area. And it was really easy for me to accept the fact that what I do would be good to my people, but maybe evil to someone else's people.
For me, this is actually just simpler.
It's way simpler.
And it's more in tune with how I naturally want to view the world. My ethical dilemmas become less with this concept because my ethical dilemmas boil down to my people rather than a black and white definition. Because the simple fact of the matter is, and I'm sure that anybody who was raised heavily Christian can sympathize with this, what you are raised to believe as good and evil in your education versus what you are raised to believe is good and evil in a practical sense are two entirely different things often enough. Because you have, on one hand, these hard and fast written teachings on what good and evil are, and then on the other hand, you have the practical examples that you are given by your family in life. as to what you should be considering good and evil. And I know that often enough, what my family would call evil in a practical sense diverged from what they would have done in a theological sense.
Mm-hmm.
So to see the system of the Arch-Heathens, to see this idea of good and evil as being concentrated on the tribe and on my people, made all of that actually come together for once. Much easier for me this way.
I'm the odd one out on this one then. It was a really hard transition for me to make because I have anxiety, and there is something comforting with, like, I like to know what the expectations are of me. This was probably the hardest thing for me, point blank, because I liked that. And now as a now of course I'm different. I feel very differently, but it was hard. It took a lot of introspection. It took a lot of reading, a lot of research. Because on one hand, I hated the hypocrisy I saw growing up everywhere. From kind of the hard and fast rules, not just in general. I grew up in a society that had very super strong, very strong societal expectations. To this, where it really was more situational, it was more dependent, and there was this great deal of responsibility that was all of a sudden put on me, and that scared me at first, because now I can't just check, there's not like the checkbox and I can go, oh well, I want to do this, oh well, my religion says this is bad. I have to think, when I'm making decisions, I still have to consciously think, okay, how will this decision affect my husband? How will this decision affect my kindred? How will this decision affect my family? And honestly, it's been great for me, because it's fundamentally changed who I am in a very good way, because I am by nature selfish. But the other end, it's the flip side of it being, it is kind of hard. It's a lot harder than just having these rules that I can check off and say, oh well, this is how it works, and this is how it works. And yeah, it's definitely been good for me, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, if you're like me and you struggled with like adopting this and doing this, you're not alone, because it was hard for me. So we have a questions. Are teleological facilities sufficient to discern what is truly good and bad for the tribe? What if things which hurt the tribe immediately but benefit the latter? In the absence of future sight, aren't heathens behooved to simply follow our duties? Oh God, you're pulling out the big words on me, hon. I appreciate that, Skullgrim.
Okay, so real quick, I just want to tell Skullgrim. Actually, I want to thank him, because I had not actually heard the words teleological or where's the other one here? Deontological ethics outside of my former anarchist circles. So hearing them in this more philosophical point is refreshing.
I'd only seen them in my actual ethics classes, but I think that it's we can toss this out there in this, but here's the thing. At the end of the day, we do the best we can. Yes, we could kind of get into following our duties, this, that, and the other, but the fact of the matter is, sometimes we, as a group, have to weigh the evidence we have in front of us and make a decision. It might not be the best decision in hindsight, but nothing is. I mean, if I look, the thing about heathenry is reality affirming. We aren't trying, I'm not trying to, I have accepted what is, I have accepted what has been done. I move forward making the best decision I can with what I have now, recognizing that, I don't know, I just feel like if you're doing the best you can, that's all we got. And I think we're much more, we can go with those, but to be honestly, I think that it's more than just following our duties, though. That, to be honest, is a pretty good part of it, because I wouldn't necessarily say duties, I'd say obligations. Are you honoring your obligations? Josh, go ahead and talk, because you are more familiar with these terms than I am.
I wouldn't say I'm more familiar with the terms outside of and I'm going to be honest, the only time I've ever heard them is from ANCAPs. And if you are at all familiar with anarchy versus anarcho-capitalism, you will know why I'm not entirely sure why I understand the terms. However, taking context from the question here, when it comes to whether we can discern whether something is truly good or bad for the tribe, and whether if it hurts the tribe immediately but benefits in the future, for instance, and I know this is actually rather topical, the cessation of coal mining, that would hurt certain people right now. It would destroy certain economies. However, the potential benefit to the human race may outweigh that initial hurt, but we don't know yet. And so when it comes to things like that, it just simply takes time to tell whether or not it's going to be good or bad. And then as far as following the deontological side of that, where we're following our duties, as it were, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other when it comes to this. Yes, you should be doing things that will benefit your people in the future, but you should not neglect the things that will immediately benefit your people.
I would say that, we're never, like you put it, in the absence of future sight, we're never going to have that. But what we do have is the ability to learn, the ability to know our own abilities to essentially predict the future, and know how much we should trust ourselves in matters like that when we're trying to look further ahead than the immediate. It is not going to be an uncommon situation for anybody that you may have to take an action that seems like it is immediately damaging to your people, but it is better than it is, how do I put that without speaking more goodly? You can have an action that's immediately damaging your people, but has a long-term effect that you recognize is going to do more good than bad in the long term. And it's an especially easier decision to make if you know that the short-term good is going to cause extreme long-term damage. Josh brought up the coal mining example. That's a great one. I have people in West Virginia. I had people that if we got rid of the coal industry would be out of jobs, that their whole economical base would be screwed, and it would be extremely horrible for them in the period of time it took that area to adjust, which could take a generation easily to adjust from something like that. However, I also know that the continued use of coal as a primary source of energy is the kind of thing that's going to make it so that my kid and my theoretical grandchildren can't breathe. And I would say that long-term good outweighs this short-term bad. So are our teleological faculties sufficient to discern that? Not always. But do we often enough need to take that chance? Yes. Do we need to be able to recognize within ourselves whether or not we're capable of making that sort of decision? Absolutely. A person needs to be able to recognize their own strengths and weaknesses. You need to be able to look at your history of trying to make decisions like that and how often those decisions are correct on the smaller things before you start trying to make them on the bigger things. And a lot of that comes down to we are definitely, heathens tend to be a little bit hierarchical, and that's going to be something that you have to look at when your people are basically finding their shakedown in that hierarchy.
And just another little thought I have here. I think luck plays into this too.
Certainly.
I think if you have luck, you're going to do better in making those future decisions than if you haven't kind of banked that currency.
Essentially, and I think the takeaway from this entire rambling mess of a podcast has all, 72 episodes now?
Something like that. Yeah.
It's all related, and you can't take one piece without taking all the other pieces.
Nope. And at the end of the day, this is why you need tribe. This is why you need to be around other heathens. If you are a new heathen, I behoove you to please find other heathens. Find someone to work with that can teach you, because this is not something that any of us can completely understand from a book. And I say this as someone who is an avid reader, who loves to read. There is a failing there, and we can't do everything from books that way.
So, Skullgrim seems to think we answered that question all right. Even if we're a little bit iffy on it.
I don't think that this has been a bad show, but what do I know?
Careful there, because the ones that we always think suck are the ones the fans think were the best.
See, I was just thinking that this was a train wreck, but
well, I'm trying to decide if they think that our bad shows are the good ones because they really are, or because they just like to see us suffer.
I actually think we've done a pretty good job on this one, but that's just me. Because it is kind of a hard thing to talk about, and we're talking about it, which, I have to admit, especially when you go on the internet, you get a lot of pretty flippant answers, because a lot of us are tired of having to answer that question for new people. And it's nice to actually have that conversation.
Yeah, it hasn't been a bad one. I actually wanted to have, some notes in front of me so that I could refer back to certain things that I've read or conversations I've had in the past. But, I had a really long week and decided I was going to play video games all day. So sorry, guys.
I was feasting with my kindred today.
I was busy.
That's what she said.
She didn't get into town until later, so don't worry about that.
It's a little disturbing. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I think, it's something that it's definitely something that the way you're going to build it, I think at the end of the day, and you guys are welcome to disagree with me, but you're wrong, is by being heathen, by getting involved, by learning, by talking with other people, letting other do that. Absolutely do that. That's definitely a way to put it, by being heathen. And by being heathen, you could also say that by fostering the growth and prosperity of your people, because that's really what it comes down to, is how well your people are doing and what you're doing to make sure that that's a thing. Right. Absolutely.
Did we run out of things to talk about?
No, I just got bombarded with questions from like 6 different directions all of a sudden, and people telling me things weren't working.
Don't mind mine. I've got.
And so I'm just kind of like, I don't know. But at the end of the day, basically, I don't. I did get the links fixed that weren't working on the Yule page. Apparently, they updated the page maker I use for that particular thing, and the link stopped working. So.
Oh, good times.
Yeah, but those have all been fixed. I hard-coded those babies in there with HTML. They ain't going anywhere. So, yeah. So, I just want to say our Yule market is really good this year. I'm really, really excited for all the people that we have. If you haven't gone, once again, that is yule.heathentalk.com.
And for everything else, whether it's heathen related or not, start at heathentalk.com. If you're looking for information on a recipe, go to heathentalk.com and search for it. It won't be there, but go there.
Well, there will be some recipes there this year because, damn it, Yule's coming, and I'm going to require everybody to learn the best recipe out there for glug.
It's already up. We put it up last year, Thorin.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'll have to see if I'm making any modifications this year because it's definitely a living recipe.
Yeah.
So everybody on the podcast should know I missed an episode a couple of weeks back because my great-grandmother died, which is sad. However, apparently it benefits the heathen world because I am going to, as soon as I find it, I'm going to share my grandmother's recipe for the best cake on the planet. I don't care what your grandmother made, she's wrong. This is the best cake.
So you're making one of those for Thanksgiving, right?
Fuck.
There we go.
I'm going to work on it. We'll see what happens.
All right. If needs must, you can come over to my house and make it in my kitchen.
Okay.
So yeah, if you, and there is still time if you want to get in on the Yule shop, send us an email, yule@heathentalk.com. That goes to me, and I will make sure that you get added to it. We will need a picture, a description, a link, and please throw in a coupon code for our people. We prefer Heathen Talk, but we'll take other ones if we have to.
Thorin is magic is always a good one.
Yes, it is always a great one. But we've got a lot of really good ones. I do want to thank, just real quick, Beloved Viking Vinyl for being on the Yule Marketplace for the second year in a row. So thank you for that.
They make some really cool stuff, too.
They do.
I mean, if you have a car, I don't. Or if you're willing to stick stickers to your laptop, I'm not. Or your guitar, again, not happening. They make cool stuff.
You can put
I highly encourage people to buy the bumper stickers that I am also unwilling to put on my car.
You know what? I put a Heathen Talk sticker on my bike. So
I would totally put a Heathen Talk sticker on something. I would, just not my computer or my guitar.
That is
but
also
I don't own a car.
you could put it on your guitar case.
I have a soft case.
Well then, what good are you? Yeah, I put that is, and like that's the thing. Go to the swag section, guys. Heathen Talk. We have some even non-Heathen Talk branded. It's Heathen Talk stuff, but it's not like overtly Heathen Talk shirts and stuff that you can buy.
Can we get the Honor the White shirt put up? Because I need that to be a thing.
No, because I'm not designing it.
Right. I have a design in mind. Honor the Whites.
Oh, yeah.
I have a design in mind, but I need to talk to Matt and see if we can come to an agreement, because I like my Yeti, and he has a Yeti in mind, so we'll figure it out. There'll be a really cool one with a Yeti on it for those of you who live in an area that has Yetis. For the rest of you, I don't care.
Your area is not important.
Anyway, we've got T-shirts, we have got mugs, we got bags, we got. We've also got the You're Weird shirts that are my personal favorite.
Also, check your Orlog.
Yeah, what are we getting check your Orlog?
I gave you guys a design for Check Your Orlog, and no one ever got back to me on it, so it is still sitting on my computer.
Give it to us again.
Okay, it'll be tomorrow because I'm on my laptop, and it's late for me. So, but yeah, I mean, there's, I hate to be all go buy our stuff, but I'm really proud of it, and it's been I've had the Heathen Talk shirt for a year now, wear it every other week, and it's still in good shape. I mean, it's been pretty good quality stuff.
Oh yeah,
the stickers have turned out really well.
Mm-hmm.
And
I still need to get a mug.
Yeah, you do need to get a mug. We have mugs in black and white.
I had a white mug, and it walked away at Cascadia Moat. Now I have a black mug, and I drink coffee out of it every morning.
But you know what that means, right? Since it walked away at Cascadia, there's a Mason somewhere who is drinking coffee out of a Heathen Talk mug. We are part of the Illuminati.
Yes.
That's exactly what that means. It's it's a conspiracy.
But yeah, it's definitely worth support heathen vendors and artists this year, because
if you don't buy our stuff, buy their stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Because it's important. So we are officially out of time. So, Josh?
Well, I mean, y'all aren't the boss of me.
And you're doing it wrong.
Usually.
Everybody have a good week. Thank you, Heathenry, for being our sponsor this week.
Yes. Thank you, Sheathenry. And everybody have a good night.